Welcome to Life Stories. Have you ever felt like no matter how hard you work, you're never enough for the people who should love you the most? Today's story is about Emily, a woman who spent her whole life living in the shadow of her younger sister, Madison. While Emily built her success through hard work and determination, her family only cared about Madison's beauty and charm. But when betrayal pushes Emily to her breaking point, she finally takes control of her own destiny. Subscribe to Life Stories to begin today's journey. My name is Emily, and I was the firstborn daughter in a family of 4. My younger sister, Madison, arrived a few years after me, and from the moment she could walk and talk, she became the center of our little world. From as far back as I can remember, I was always the responsible one, the independent one, the one who never needed looking after. Madison, on the other hand, was everything I wasn't: vibrant, full of life, effortlessly charming. Our home was never silent. It buzzed with energy, filled with the sound of Madison's laughter, the lively pop songs she played on repeat, and our parents' affectionate voices always showering her with attention. I was different. I preferred the quiet, the solitude of a book in the corner of the living room, the rhythmic scratch of my pencil against my homework, while Madison danced in new dresses and excitedly showed off the latest gadgets. I was more interested in things that required patience and discipline. Birthdays and holidays made it even clearer how different we were. Madison would tear through her gifts, squealing with excitement over the latest fashion trends and electronics. Meanwhile, I carefully tucked away any money I received, saving it for something I truly needed. I still remember my father, watching me count my savings, shaking his head with an amused smile. "What are you saving for this time, Em?" he'd ask. "A laptop for studying," I'd reply, knowing the library computers were always in use when I needed them. He would nod, and though I could tell he was proud of my discipline, there was always something in his eyes, something that said he didn't quite understand why I wasn't like other girls my age. Madison, of course, never had to save. When she saw something she wanted, she simply asked for it. "Mom, did you see the new iPhone? Everyone at school has it. I need it." And just like that, she'd have it. No questions, no compromises. I never complained. I had long accepted that this was how things worked in our family. The day I finally bought my laptop was one of the proudest moments of my life. I had spent months researching the best model, comparing prices, and making sure I got the most value for my money. When I brought it home, my heart was practically bursting with pride. "Look," I announced at dinner, setting it on the table in front of me. "I finally got it." Mom glanced up briefly from her plate. "That's nice, dear." Then, before I could say another word, she turned to Madison. "Oh, Maddie, tell us about your day at the mall." Just like that, my moment was gone. Madison launched into a long, excited story about her shopping trip, and my achievement faded into the background. Forgotten. I knew my parents loved me. They provided for me, made sure I had everything I needed, and I never once doubted that they cared. But the truth was, in our family's little solar system, Madison was the sun, and I was just a distant planet quietly orbiting on my own path. As we grew older, our differences became even more apparent. Madison experimented with wild hairstyles, the latest fashion trends, and an ever-changing circle of friends. I stuck to my practical ponytail and comfortable jeans. The library became my sanctuary, a place where I could think, work toward my goals, and not feel like I had to compete for attention. Then came college. I had spent years preparing, studying late into the night, perfecting my essays, applying for scholarships. When the acceptance letter arrived, offering me a full scholarship to Stanford, I thought, for once, my parents would celebrate my success the way they celebrated Madison's small triumphs. I ran into the kitchen, waving the letter in my hand. "Mom, Dad, I got in." And with a full scholarship. Mom barely looked up from helping Madison with her makeup. That's nice. Dear. Madison. Hold still, I'm trying to get your eyeliner just right. Dad peeked over his newspaper. Nodding. Good job. Emily. We expected nothing less. And that was it. No excitement. No hugs. No heartfelt congratulations. Just a casual acknowledgement. As if my years of effort had been nothing more than an inevitable outcome. I clenched the letter in my hands and forced a smile. Thanks. I muttered. Before heading back to my room. That night. As I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. I told myself it didn't matter. My success wasn't for them, it was for me. Meanwhile, Madison barely scraped through high school. When she brought home a poor report card, I expected disappointment. Maybe even frustration from our parents. But instead, they gathered around her with comforting words and unwavering support. Oh, sweetie. Don't worry. Mom cooed, stroking Madison's hair. College isn't for everyone. You have so many other talents. Dad nodded. That's right. Princess. You'll figure out your path. I sat there in silence, watching as they showered her with reassurances. Are you serious? I blurted out. She barely passed. Mom shot me a sharp look. Emily. Don't be mean. Your sister has other gifts. I bit my tongue and walked away. That was the moment I knew, with absolute certainty, that no matter what I achieved, I would never be the favorite. But that was okay, because I didn't need their validation. I was going to make something of myself, with or without their approval. College was my fresh start. For the first time in my life, I was surrounded by people who valued hard work and ambition. People who didn't measure worth by charm or beauty but by determination and perseverance. At Stanford, I found my place among students who spent nights buried in textbooks, who talked about their dreams in the same way I did, with intensity, with hunger. I threw myself into my studies, determined to make the most of the opportunity one had earned. My scholarship covered tuition, but I took on part-time jobs to afford other expenses. Learning how to manage finances, pay rent, and truly stand on my own. I had never felt more in control of my life. Meanwhile, Madison drifted. She tried out beauty courses but never finished them. She spent most of her time shopping, attending events, and effortlessly getting by on our parents' support. Every now and then, she'd call, her voice bubbly as ever. Guess what? Mom and Dad are paying for me to take a beauty course. It's gonna be amazing. I wanted to tell her about my research project, the internship I had landed for the summer, or how I was juggling coursework with work shifts. But I knew it didn't matter. She wouldn't care. So I just said, "That's great. Mads. I hope it works out." Years passed in a blur. Madison hopped from one course to another, never quite settling on anything. While I kept climbing, I graduated with honors, landing a job at a top company before my diploma was even dry. Moving into my own apartment in Chicago was a bittersweet moment, exciting, yet filled with a quiet loneliness. As I unpacked my belongings, I thought about how different my life was from Madison's. She was still at home, pampered and adored, while I was standing on my own, ready to take on the world. The first few months at my job were overwhelming. I worked harder than anyone else, determined to prove myself. Long hours, late nights, and endless projects filled my days. But I didn't mind. I was building something real, something earned. Then, after a year of relentless effort, I was promoted to team leader. I couldn't wait to share the news. I called home, excitement bubbling in my chest. "Mom, I got promoted. I'm officially a team leader now." There was a pause. Then, in the same light, airy tone as always, she said, "Oh, that's nice, dear. But guess what? Madison met the most wonderful boy. He comes from such a good family. And we're all so thrilled. As she went on about Madison's new boyfriend, my achievement disappeared into the background, drowned out by the usual adoration for my sister. I hung up the phone, feeling a familiar weight settle in my chest. It didn't matter how much I accomplished, they would never see me the way they saw her. But if my family couldn't value my achievements, then I would just have to achieve even more. I threw myself into my work, working longer hours than anyone else, determined to keep moving forward. Days turned into nights. Weekends became extra opportunities to get ahead. And my hard work paid off. One promotion led to another. And before long, I became the youngest department head in the company's history. Then, one afternoon, I was called into my boss's office. "Emily, your work has been outstanding. We've never had someone rise through the ranks so quickly," he said, smiling. "Thank you, sir," I replied, beaming with pride. "And it shows," he continued. "That's why I want to offer you something special. We have a program for top employees, a chance to buy an apartment at a significant discount. You've earned it." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of paperwork, planning, and excitement. When I finally got the keys to my new apartment, I felt like I was floating. It wasn't just a home, it was proof of everything I had built on my own. To celebrate, I decided to host a small housewarming party. Since I didn't have much furniture yet, I bought some inexpensive plastic tables and chairs, making sure everything was neatly arranged. Even the disposable tableware matched the decor. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine, and I was proud of it. The evening started off wonderfully. My colleagues arrived first, bringing thoughtful gifts and warm congratulations. Then my family showed up, Mom, Dad, and Madison, sweeping in like a whirlwind. The moment Madison stepped inside, her eyes darted around, taking in the modest furnishings. I caught the smirk she tried to hide. As the night went on, I noticed a pattern. Every time one of my colleagues congratulated me or brought up my accomplishments, my parents would quickly change the subject to Madison. "Oh, that reminds me," Mom said, cutting off one of my co-workers mid-sentence. "Did Emily tell you about Madison's latest modeling gig? She's just so photogenic." Dad nodded eagerly. "Yes. Our Madison was born for the spotlight. Such natural talent." I saw the confused and slightly uncomfortable expressions on my colleagues' faces as the focus shifted. Yet again, to Madison. I wanted to disappear. Madison, on the other hand, soaked up the attention. "Oh, Mom, stop it," she said with a giggle, clearly enjoying every second of it. Finally, thankfully, my family left. The moment the door closed, my coworker Laura turned to me, eyes wide with disbelief. "Emily, what the hell was that?" she asked, her voice low and concerned. I shrugged, trying to brush it off. "Oh, you know, that's just how they are." Another colleague, David, shook his head. "No, Emily, that's not normal. Are you okay? Do you need help?" A lump formed in my throat. Their concern was touching but also embarrassing. "Guys, really, it's fine. I'm used to it," I said, forcing a smile. "Who wants another drink?" As I busied myself in the kitchen, I could hear them whispering, their worry obvious. I blinked back tears, refusing to let them see how much my family's behavior had hurt me. That night, as I lay in my bed in my apartment, in the home I had earned, I made a decision. I wouldn't let them define me. I had come too far, worked too hard, to let their indifference steal my happiness. And if they couldn't be proud of me, then I would be proud of myself. Time moved quickly, and I slowly turned my apartment into a real home, one that reflected my hard work, my independence, and my own sense of peace. Every piece of furniture I bought, every framed photo on the wall, every book neatly stacked on my shelves reminded me of how far I had come. It wasn't grand, but it was mine. One sunny Monday, I decided it was time to treat myself to something I had been saving for, a car. It wasn't flashy, just a reliable sedan to get me where I needed to go. As I drove it home, a deep wave of pride washed over me. I had bought this car with my own money. I had earned it. It was another symbol of everything I had built without anyone's help. I hadn't planned to tell my family. It wasn't that I was hiding it, but I already knew their response would be underwhelming. Still, news spread fast. That evening, my phone rang. It was Madison. "Emily, I heard you bought a car. That's nice." Her tone was light, but I could tell she didn't mean it. "Yeah," I said cautiously. "I needed something reliable for work." She laughed. That same light, carefree laugh I had heard all my life. "You know, you're really doing things the hard way. All this working and saving, it's so unnecessary." My stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" "Well," she said, as if explaining something painfully obvious. "The real job of a woman is to marry properly. Find a man who will take care of you and give you everything you need. Why work yourself to death when you could have it all handed to you?" I was speechless for a moment. Was she serious? "Madison, that's not how I see things," I said, keeping my voice calm. "I want to earn what I have. I'm proud of what I've accomplished." She sighed dramatically. "Oh, Emily. Always the difficult one. Well, you'll see. I'll show you how it's done." Before I could respond, she hung up. I stared at my phone, a mix of anger and disbelief bubbling inside me. How could we be so different? A few months later, I got my answer. Madison called me again, her voice filled with excitement. "Emily, you'll never guess. I'm getting married. His name is Nicholas. And he's absolutely loaded. His parents are paying for everything. The wedding is going to be stunning." As she went on about the dresses, the flowers, the guest list, I felt an emptiness inside me. This was what she had been working toward, this was her version of success. The wedding day came faster than I expected. I stood in a grand hall, surrounded by glittering guests, feeling like a stranger in my own family. Madison looked radiant in her designer gown, and our parents couldn't stop beaming with pride. I sipped champagne, trying to swallow the bitterness rising inside me. Had my parents ever looked at me like that? Had they ever been this happy about anything I had achieved? As the night wore on, I felt more and more out of place. Madison thrived in the spotlight, charming the guests and soaking up every second of admiration. My parents introduced themselves to everyone, proudly announcing, "We're the parents of the bride." On my way home, driving my modest car back to my modest apartment, I couldn't help but wonder, had I made the wrong choices? Was Madison right? Had I chosen the harder path for nothing? But then, as I pulled into my parking space, I thought about my job, my achievements, the pride I felt knowing I had earned everything I had. No, my path might be harder, but it was mine. That made all the difference. After Madison's wedding, life settled into a routine. Work kept me busy, and I poured myself into new projects, new challenges. But my mother's calls became a regular and unwelcome interruption. Every conversation followed the same pattern. "Emily, darling." Mom would begin, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "You won't believe what Madison's been up to." I would brace myself as she launched into another story about Madison's fabulous life. "She's been invited to the most exclusive events. Can you believe it? Our Madison. Rubbing elbows with high society." One day, after an especially exhausting call, I couldn't hold back anymore. "Mom, that's great for Madison," I said, frustration leaking into my voice. "But don't you want to know what's going on in my life?" There was a pause. Then Mom's voice, patronizing as ever. "Oh, honey, of course we care. But you really should learn from your sister. Be more glamorous. Why work so hard for so little when you could have it all?" I clenched my jaw, swallowing my anger. They would never change. A few weeks later, an invitation arrived. Madison and Nicholas were throwing a housewarming party for their luxury apartment, a gift from his parents. Of course. The night of the party, I stood outside their high-rise building. Feeling small, I smoothed down my simple dress, took a deep breath, and walked in. The apartment was breathtaking. Every surface sparkled. Every piece of furniture looked like it cost more than my entire salary. My parents were already there, marveling at every detail. I tried to stay in the background, but Madison spotted me immediately. She walked over, champagne flute in hand, her eyes scanning me from head to toe. "Emily, so glad you could make it," she said, her tone sweet but her gaze critical. "I hope you're taking notes. This is how a housewarming should be done, none of that plastic furniture and disposable dishes nonsense like at your place." My cheeks burned. Madison. That's. But she was already gone, flitting off to dazzle other guests, leaving me standing there, stunned. That night, as I drove home, I finally admitted the truth to myself. I would never be enough for them. No matter how much I achieved, no matter how successful I became, they would always choose Madison. But that didn't mean I had to let them define me. Because for the first time, I realized something important. I wasn't stuck in their world anymore. I had built my own. And maybe, just maybe, that was the greatest victory of all. In the end, I chose myself. I chose the life I built, the independence I fought for, and the pride of knowing that everything I had was truly mine. Cutting ties with my family was painful, but it was necessary. I no longer needed their approval, I had learned to be proud of myself. Years later, as I sat in my office overlooking the city skyline, I smiled. My journey had been difficult, but it was mine. I had built my own success, step by step, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. As for Madison, she continued chasing an illusion, never quite satisfied, always looking for the next easy way out. But that was her choice, just as I had made mine. And I had no regrets. Subscribe to Life Stories for more incredible real-life experiences.